Conference will now be recorded.
So thank you and welcome everyone to the Virtual Visitor Center. I'm Michelle Briggs. I'm the Chief Park Ranger at the Sioux Locks. I've been there for about going on 17 years now. And our special guest today is Captain Eric Treece. He's a pilot with the Western Great Lakes Pilot Association. And before that, he was the captain of what is many people's favorite ship, but we'll let him tell that story. And thank you for joining us. And let's get going.
Well,
So
thank you for having me.
you're welcome.
So,
My first question that I had, and I will admit we did a little pre-planning, and I had a lot of people giving me information of good things to ask Eric about. Apparently, you have wanted to be working on the Great Lakes for a very long time. Could you tell us a little more about that?
yeah, pretty much my entire childhood. I grew up on the St. Mary's River in the summer times. My grandparents bought a cabin when I was really young, and I'd spend my summers up there. And the boats would go by, and I just kind of gravitated towards them. And me and my grandfather would sit in the easy chairs out in the yard and watch them go by all the time. And it just really took hold during my childhood, and then yeah, the rest is history basically.
So tell us about what we're seeing in this photo.
Well, in high school, my mom discovered that there was, I think I was like 12 to 18. The United States Navy Sea Cadets had a ship in a little boat in Mount Clemens, Michigan, and it was called the Noble Odyssey. And a fun fact about that, it was a minesweeper, and it was President Jimmy Carter's ship when he was a midshipman in the Navy at the Navy Academy. He did time on that boat, so that was a pretty cool little factoid about that boat. But yeah, I did Sea Cadets for 2 or 3 years, and it was a good time. It was a learning experience. I learned a little bit about seamanship, and when it came time to make a decision in life, basically I wanted to just get a factory job out of high school and call it good, but she's like, "You're going to school. Pick a school and go." It only made sense to go to the Maritime Academy, so I graduated high school in 1986, and then in June 1986, and then mid-June I was in the Maritime Academy.
And I understand this was you on a field trip in high school.
Yeah, that's. I'm sure many of you recognize that parking lot. That's the Valley Camp parking lot. We went for a day trip up there to see what it was like on a freighter, and I mean, I've been on the Valley Camp many times before then, but it was a good time. And there's me boat nerding as well. I'm kind of doing two jobs in one there. I got my camera with me, and I pretty much never leave the house without it.
Now, you mentioned the Maritime Academy, and these are all modern pictures that I will confess that I just stole from the internet. And I understand that it was a little different when you went through.
Yeah, the Maritime Academy today is not the Maritime Academy of 1986. I know you've got some pictures coming up there where I'm rocking a mullet. And yeah, I had a mullet through most of my academy years, and sometimes we'd show up in uniform, and sometimes we wouldn't. It was pretty laid back, which is why a lot of guys actually chose that particular academy. Um, and then went through that, graduated in 1990, and I can't even remember how long after that things changed at the academy, and you got a 4-year degree, and they got the training ship and tore down the old building and made the new one, and it's a very modern, very nice facility now.
Now, what was your first ship after you graduated?
I graduated in 1990, and right out of the gate, I was hired by Cleveland Tankers. I was on the Gemini. I did 60 days on her, and it was a fun job. It was a great learning job. You can go to school and do the maritime sea projects and everything else, but you really don't, in my opinion, you really don't learn anything hardcore until you're feet to the fire. And being on a loaded tanker all the time, you learned quick. And Captain Dan Hobbs was the captain on there when I was there, and he was a tremendous mentor and excellent ship handler. And I learned so much from them and the crew in general. Had a really top-notch crew on that boat, and have a lot of fond memories of it, even though I did 60 days on it. And yeah, I decided I didn't want to be on tankers. We were in Toledo on July 4th. I think we were loading cargo. But anyway, it was the fireworks display was up the river, and there were so many boats in the river that you could literally walk across the Maumee River and not get your feet wet. And the whole time it was like 90% humidity, and you could see the fumes coming out of the vents, and they were just spilling on the deck. And smelling gas fumes wasn't fun. And I just kept waiting for somebody to launch a bottle rocket and just end it all right there. And thankfully, obviously, nobody did. But yeah, I realized that tankers were not for me. And it's a nice segue into we were going down the St. Mary's River one day, and Dean Hobbs, Dan's brother, he was a personnel director for Inland Steel, and I was getting bumped, Jeff and I, when we got to Tonawanda, New York. And he asked me if I wanted to go fit up Edward L. Ryerson. She was getting a 5-year inspection in Sturgeon Bay. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'll do that right now. And yeah, August of 1990, I jumped on the Edward L. Ryerson and spent 30 years sailing on the Ryerson, Sykes, and Joe Block.
So I'm going to have to pause for just a minute. I am so sorry. I have locked my husband out of the house by accident, and he is downstairs in the garage losing his mind. So I will be right back.
Hi, Eric. This is Dale Stewart, your former.
Dale, I
doing?
remember you. You were one of my wheelsmen. How are you?
That's pretty good. Pretty good. So, do you like working at the Pilots Association?
Oh yeah, yeah. That was a good move. I really enjoy it.
You don't.
Yeah.
You
How you
don't
been
miss.
doing? It's been
Pretty good.
it's been
I'm
a while.
retired.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have too many
Okay.
years left to me.
Oh yeah.
Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, proof that I'm not AI robot. I make a lot of mistakes. So one of the next question I had queued up here is, what kind of experiences shaped your choices in your career?
I just wanted to be on the water and drive boats. Once I got a taste of that, cadet time, I did time on the William J. Delancey, which is now the Paul Archer Gertha. I was on the Indiana Harbor and the Roger Blau and the Fred R. White Jr. and I got to steer those boats all over the place. I did more wheeling than I did anything, and that's what I really enjoyed. And yeah, it just kind of led me to, engine department was never even in the realm of possibility in my mind. I wanted to be on deck. I wanted to be able to see things, and that's how I ended up where I am.
Now, did you have to choose a department when you were still in the academy, or did it just, you were always going to be deck and that's what you got hired for and that's what you did?
Yeah, when you went to the academy, you picked either deck or engine, and there were people that actually could do both. Yeah, but it would be a longer time for training and schooling, but you could get a degree and licensed in both departments.
Okay. And last night because I had questions about one of the photos you sent me. I had questions about the photo. Could you tell us a little bit about the Sykes and its nickname and reputation when you started there?
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know if you're going to show that photo or not, but
I am.
Yeah, it was a picture. Okay. When I was first made on there, actually, when I was on the Joe Block, I started on the Joe Block right after the Ryerson. It was just a short gig on the Ryerson, and went to the Joe Block. later in 1990. And the guys on the Joe Block, every time we'd meet the Wilfred Sykes on Lake Michigan, they call it Alcatraz. And well, I had to ask why they call it Alcatraz. And they're like, well, you're trapped on there, and there's no hope of ever seeing daylight again. So when I got there and I started doing year after year on the Sykes, it was like, yeah, this is kind of like a prison of sorts. So me being me, and I have a sense of humor about everything. I dyed a pair of our coveralls orange, and had the boats and paint on the steamer Wilfred Sykes Maximum Correctional Facility or whatever I had my payroll number on the front, and that was my deck uniform for the year. And some guys laughed at it, and some of them were just like, "Oh boy."
Now, was it as bad as you had heard, or did you find it fairly pleasant?
No, I enjoyed the Sykes. The Sykes was a work boat. You were in port every day, sometimes twice a day, and you were carrying multiple cargoes. There was one time I put 5 cargoes on her, and she was a 6 cargo hold ship. Uh, it was a challenge, and that was something I've always needed throughout my career as a challenge. And the Sykes always fed that hunger to be driven further and and get that fix.
I imagine
For
with being able to carry those multi cargoes, like it was different every time. Like didn't get repetitious. It
Yeah,
doesn't sound
yeah,
like.
yeah. It's funny on the Sykes, we always kept our load books and unload books, and we could always refer to them. And they had load books back to the day she was converted to a self unloader, and we could go back and look in there, and everything was logged. Okay, you got this cargo with this cubic capacity and whatnot, and you could kind of guess. But there were actually sometimes when, yeah, they throw a curveball at you and there was nothing, and you just kind of had to shoot from the hip. And that 5 cargo one was a complete shoot from the hip, but it worked. And I think that cargo went to Ludington, actually, to the Reeve Riley dock.
Very cool.
So, but yeah, the Sykes, I loved the Sykes. The Sykes was a good boat. It was a busy boat. It made time go by fast.
Now, you did mention the Ryerson, and I think you may have already answered this question, but do you have any favorite ships you were on and what made them special?
Oh, she's got a special place in my heart now as well. She's so sleek looking and so fast, and she's just a good looking boat. And I remember the engineer's day I took her through the locks, and I remember the first time in 2006, I believe it was, that we came out of Superior and came down through the river during the day. We had, yeah, rock cut was just lined on both sides. It was so cool to see that, and all the people that come down along the St. Clair River and Detroit rivers to see it go by. It was really neat. It was really neat. They always say that Paul Archer Girth is the queen of the lakes, and I always say, yeah, until the Edward L. Ryerson comes out, and they're going to be Paul who.
I will confess, I have lots of favorite boats. I couldn't pick a single one, but I think the Ryerson is absolutely the prettiest, and she looks fast. I mean, even tied up in Superior, she looks fast.
Yeah, she is. I don't think there were many boats that passed us, and the ones that did were salties.
So you became the captain of the Ryerson, but I'm kind of curious, how did you get to that point? Could you describe a little bit of your experiences and what it took to become the captain of that beautiful boat?
Well, that was another feat to the fire feat. As far as timing, when I was on the Ryerson in 1990, the captain, we were pulling into Indiana Harbor, and he was kind of asking me what my plans were, and said, there's a lot of guys that are retiring in this fleet in the next couple of years, and you're going to move up really fast if you stay here. And I didn't really think much about it at the time. I was 21 and dumb and just living life. And yeah, next thing I know, I was and writing my master's license, and what was that, 1990? think it was 96 or 97, 96. I wrote my master's, and that's when I sailed captain on the Sykes, relief captain on the Sykes for the first time. Was 1996, I believe.
So that's just
And
6 years after you graduated.
yeah, yeah, and it's a good thing. I was young when I was doing that because it was easy to learn. Uh, Now it's like trying to teach an old dog new tricks kind of thing when it comes to ship handling and whatnot. But yeah, back then you learned real fast, and yeah, I did. I was up for every dock. I was up for every undocking, and they threw me in the front window and said go. And after 60 days of breaking in, the captain had to get off to go on vacation, and they gave it to me, and off I went.
Wow. Now, you mentioned you had to write your master's license. What is that? What is that process?
Well, when you write your license in the academy, that's just a Great Lakes mate's license. The master's license, you need so much first mate time, and then once you get that, you're qualified to write your master's license. And I master unlimited tonnage steam or motor driven vessels on the Great Lakes.
Okay.
And then I have pilotage. I have pilotage all the way out to Cape Vincent, including the Welland Canal.
Cool. Now, I understand that's one of the kind of unique things about the Great Lakes Maritime Academy is that you also get that pilotage license.
Yes, yeah.
Now, what did you like best about working for long stretches at a time on a single boat?
I like being able to homestead. That was you could make your room the way you wanted it to on the Ryerson and Sykes and Joe Block for that matter. We had when gaming consoles came around, we had our PlayStations all wired in together, and when we get clear to Detroit River Light, we'd all go play Call of Duty for a little while, and then go to bed, and then get up for the Welland Canal and go do that. And it was nice not having to drag your stuff from boat to boat to boat, and not knowing kind of what your vacation schedule was right out of the gate for the year, and it made that aspect of life really easy.
Now, I presume from this picture that was sent to me while you were out battling ice in Lake Michigan, that you were allowed to have guests.
Yeah, it's funny because when I got to take the Ryerson for the first time as captain in 1997, I finally talked to my mom. She's terrified of water, and I talked her into making a trip on the Ryerson, and it was like she found a new love in life, and didn't want to get off after she got on and did the trip. And yeah, every year for, well, I don't know, about 20 years, every year she'd come out on whatever ship I was on, and make a trip, and she loved it out there. So I'd always try to get her on when I could.
That's so cool.
So yeah, she really enjoyed it. And Mr. KYS, know your ships. I know he's on here, and they'd come out together, and yeah, it was a good time. It kind of broke things up having family and friends on board for about a week or so.
And I'm presuming that since you're here in the big chair, this is from one of your stints as captain.
Yes, it is. That's it's funny on the Ryerson. We had those long days on the Welland Canal, and you'd have to sit there and wait for locks or whatever, and you'd be all tied up along the wall there waiting. I had the boats, and he made this great big pedestal, and we put a lazy boy on it, and it, yeah. So you were sitting in like the king's throne on the Ryerson. So.
And after achieving that and becoming pilot of or captain of the prettiest boat on the Great Lakes, what was it that made you decide you wanted to become a pilot?
Well, I did 30 years with the Inland Steel Central Marine, and the Sykes was pretty much stuck on her same route. Once in a while, we'd get up to Lake Superior, and I could handle that boat, like, you know, the challenge in handling was gone. I knew her limitations and when to push it and when not to, and it was just time for a change. I had friends. One of my friends has been with Western Great Lakes since 1998, and he every year he's been trying to get me to come over here and join the dark side, as they call it, and well, that's what we'd call it between each other, and then yeah, I talked to another guy I sailed with. He was one of my first mates, and he's like, "This is the best thing ever. You really need to get over here. This is amazing." And then I talked to another guy I went to school with. He's like, "Yeah, get over here, get over here." So yeah, I went for the COVID year. I went for a ride on the Selena. She came out of Thunder Bay, and I jumped on right above the locks there, and one of the pilots on the river. After I got off, I was going back to our cabin. And I was just like, wow, this is pretty cool. You do a job, you get off, you can go to your house, you can go have a beer, you can go, you're not confined to one spot. And that pretty much sealed the deal right there. And I thought, yeah, this is it. 30 years is enough. Time
And
to go on and push challenges.
I would say, and I imagine like with every boat is a new challenge. I know every time I get a new car, it's you're to an extent you're learning how to drive again.
Yes, it's every boat handles different. You can have the same class of ship, but they all have their little idiosyncrasies and all behave in different fashion. No two ships handle the same, and I do enjoy the aspect of what's this one going to do to me today, kind of thing.
And I'm wondering here if you could tell us a little bit about the Western Great Lakes Pilot Association and like what are the routes that you as a pilot with the association take on?
Well, here on the map you're showing there, you can see the various districts, and the big yellow circle, that is District 3, Western Great Lakes, and it's one of the largest, if not the largest, pilotage district in the world as far as area. Everything above Port Huron, Lake Michigan, St. Mary's River, Lake Superior, all of it, Georgian Bay, all of it. We are the pilots for that district.
Now, do you do certain parts of it or are you it just depends on who's up next? I mean, who gets which routes or
It's luck of the draw. Wherever you fall in, you get off a ship, you'll pull in, there'll be a couple pilots ahead of you on what we call the roll. And as jobs become available, which the last 5 years has been really fast, you just kind of work your way up to the next job, and it could be Sault Ste. Marie, or I'm sorry, detour down to Port Huron, or they could overland you to Duluth to bring a ship from Duluth to Thunder Bay. We've done that, or Duluth to above the Sioux, or if we're really short and need extra guys, they'll throw you in the river. We only have so many river pilots, and sometimes they need you in the river to keep boats moving. We do pretty good with that. We have very minimal delays for the most part, because we got enough pilots to do the job, and some guys are willing to come off their rest periods to do jobs.
Now, one question I forgot a little earlier. After 30 years working on ships and being a captain on a freighter, did you need more or different training to be a pilot on the Salties, the ocean-going
Yeah,
boat?
actually, there's a method to the madness. There's significant differences, uh, not necessarily in handling the ships, but in the way the ships dealing with the crews. Um, the crew, there's a whole tangent I could go off on, and things that you see that would make you scratch your head, and wonder why. But like, for instance, the saltwater vessels don't have self-tensioning winches, which makes it, a lot of people complain that we won't tie up at the Soo Locks walls while we're waiting for traffic. And if the only thing I can say to that is come walk a mile in our shoes, because you don't know what you're going to get. And you were asking about horror stories when we were talking yesterday. And one of the horror stories I thought there were actually two. One was year before last, um, because they don't have self-tensioning winches. There's no give like on the lake boats, and any lake guy sitting here will know exactly what I'm talking about. But the lake ships have self-tensioning winches where if the pressure gets too much on the line, it will give line out. The saltwater boats don't have that, so when they clamp down on their line, that's it. And if the boat's still going, even half a knot, you're gonna break
The
that
snap.
line. And yeah, it's going to snap. And what happened was the line snapped. I think the ship was coming off the dock because of the wind, or off the pier because of the wind, and the line snapped, and it shot up to the deck of the ship, and it actually severely injured one of the crew members, and they actually were medevaced to the Sioux Hospital there. And then the other thing you're dealing with on many of these ships is you'll have, for instance, you'll have Polish officers, and the deck crew will be Ukrainian or another spoken language. So you have a huge language barrier there. And the horror story I have for this one was I was taking the Irma into Thunder Bay Terminal last year before last, and we were just putting out our last line, the stern line, and it was going out, and then it just kind of stopped. Well, the Irma was a controllable pitch propeller, which means the propeller is spinning all the time. And controllable pitch propellers sometimes have a negative pitch, a slight negative pitch, or a slight positive pitch. And this one had a slight negative pitch, meaning it was pulling water in under the stern. So this line was sitting there, and I was telling the captain, I'm like, Captain, that line's sitting there way too long. It's going to start getting stuck in your propeller. And the guys on the dock started pointing, and I'm like, Captain, you got to get that line out of the water. And he's yelling on the radio. Well, he had, I think it was Ukrainian crew, and the language barrier, they couldn't get that line out of the water. And I was just like, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. And lo and behold, the whole boat started shaking. And yeah, next thing I know, 400 feet of line was wrapped around the propeller. And yeah, it was not his day. But that's some of the challenges that we're dealing with, because you don't know what you're going to get when you get on the ship. So when 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 you're getting on a buoy 33 and going up to Thunder Bay, you're trying to feel out what the dynamic is between the officers and the crew, whether they're a good working fit or not, because that takes into your decision whether you'll go in with wind or only one tug or two tugs. So it's a challenge, and it opens up more senses than when you know uh, the guys on the Sykes, we gelled really well together, and we all knew our jobs, and it was almost unwritten that what had to happen here at this dock, and things just boom boom boom. And it's not like that on the saltwater boats at all. It's every day you're stepping onto a new planet. You don't know what language you're going to speak, or how they're going to behave, and sometimes you'll get on a boat where you can see they get along really good, and they work well together, and other times you get on a boat and it's like, oh boy, this is going to be fun.
It's
So
like the bad crowd in high
it's
school.
yes, yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's a challenge, and I love it. I love it.
Now, one of the things I wanted to ask about as well, and we'll start out with, I want to ask generally, what are the differences between piloting out in the big lakes and when you're in the rivers? But let's start with telling us about what are the duties of the pilot, and things you think we should know about when you're piloting a boat like out in Lake Huron or Lake Superior or Lake Michigan.
Well, the pilot is there as an advisor, and that's basically all he is. Uh, the captain, a lot of times, will just relinquish command to the pilot, and the pilot will tell the duty officer where to go, and what routes to follow. If you're meeting traffic, how far do you want that traffic off your ship, and a lot of times in the river, you're basically just taking the ship down the river. The captain just let you do it all because they don't want any part of that most of the time. And you you tell them how fast to go. You tell them what rudder to put on and what courses to steer. It's not, and that in itself is a challenge because you're giving rudder commands the entire time. Where on a Laker, it was great. You'd know your wheelsman and you'd say, okay, start it right. And they'd start it right and they'd basically make the turn for you if you had a good wheelsman. Where these guys, I was in rock cut one time and I was constantly given rudder commands because the wheelsman was so radar locked on the gyro compass, he wasn't even looking out the window. And we're going through rock cut steering 143. And I mean, he, you know, you swing a half degree off in rock cut and you're starting to go towards one side or the other. Yeah, he wasn't getting that, so I was giving rudder commands the entire way down rock cut.
And if you
that
go
was,
off that half degree, you're quite likely shutting
yeah,
down the entire river.
yeah, pretty much. You don't want to make a mistake in rock cut, for sure. So, yeah, and I actually had one guy. I called for port 20 at Johnson's Point. Well, that's a nice rocky place with a pretty hard degree of difficulty of turn there, and yeah, he put starboard 20 on and caught that, got it in the right direction, and increased the engine to get her swinging back the right way. And but that was probably one of my more hair raising experiences that I've had was when he put that wrong rudder on at Johnson's Point.
There's a lot of
yeah,
spots in the river where it's a high degree of risk.
yes, yeah, and these guys don't want anything to do with it. They can't wait to get out of the river, and when they do, they can worry about getting to Thunder Bay or Duluth, where the majority of them really don't want anything to do with it. And the pilot just does it, and it's fun. I enjoy it.
Now, can you tell us what it's like taking so many different kinds of vessels through the Soo Locks?
Honestly, it's the biggest thing with the different vessels is the bow thruster going to work? And then you have that crew factor again. I took the Ryerson through the locks one time without a bow thruster, and that was as much as I ever wanted to not do that again. So in dealing with these bigger, heavier saltwater ships, they don't have as much, the steamers or the controllable pitch propellers. You can always have whatever engine you want on it, and at least keeps them forward. Some water coming over the rudder, so you have control on these bigger ships like the Fed navs and some of the camphor navs. They don't have controllable pitch propellers, and they've only got starts for so many starts to get the engine running. So and they accelerate just crazy fast, like dead slow on these ships is like 5.5 knots. So you don't keep the engine on very long. Otherwise, you pick up way too much speed, and you don't want to carry that speed when you're trying to make it, into the lock.
Right, you've got to stop on a point in there.
So yeah, and that's a whole nother degree of difficulty right there. Especially if you have any wind. I took 2 in last year that had northwest 20-25, and it was not fun at all. But the more you do it, the better you get at it. But it doesn't make it any less nerve wracking.
Could you explain to us a little bit about the significance of having or not having a bow thruster? I mean, what's the role of the bow thruster when you're going in or out of the locks?
The bow thruster will keep the bow up against the lock wall, which is where you want to keep it. And it'll also allow you to bring it in easier versus if you only had just you were controlling with the rudder, because you got anywhere between 400 and 680 feet of ship ahead of you, and it decreases your pivot point to ease it up or slam into the wall, I guess you could say.
Okay.
but that bow thruster will keep it up against, and you have more control while you're going into the lock.
Now, I know sometimes when we have high winds, I've seen tugs helping salties into the lock. Is that for boats that don't have a
Yeah,
bow
and that's
thruster?
and sometimes boats they do because they carry so much freeboard and wind surface area that, and again, you only have so many starts. You only have about 12 starts, and if you burn through those starts when you're going into the lock and you've got nothing left, there's nothing to stop you.
That
So
would be
you
bad.
really got to, yeah, you got to count your stop starts. And when I say start, the propeller is connected. The propeller shaft is connected right to the engine. There's no reduction gears or anything like that. And to get that turning, they blast this huge amount of compressed air that starts the engine up, and then it starts cranking. And then when you stop it, you got to restart it again if you want it to do something, and that burns through another blast of compressed air. You have generally about 12 starts to make that happen and get it through safely. Now, when I've done it, and most of our guys do it, they can do it generally 5 to 6 starts to get through the locks, which isn't bad. But when you're looking at traffic and you're looking at wind, that increases the degree of difficulty and the number of stop starts you have to do.
It sounds really complicated as opposed to,
It is, but
bringing in the Sykes. The
yeah,
people who do
it
it
is
every
because
3
you can tell.
days.
Yeah, right. And that's another thing. These crews, they, especially with the new locks out in the seaway where they got the suction cups, these guys might only handle their lines once every 3 weeks. If you think about they're coming from Algeria, so they throw their lines out there. That's the last time they have to use their ship's lines until they get to Thunder Bay or to the Sioux Locks. So they go 2 or 3 weeks without doing any kind of line handling with their mooring winches. So, you know, that's another benefit of being on the Lakers is you're making docks every 2 or 3 days. You're going through the Sioux Locks. Your crew knows that, and it becomes repetitious.
Now, you kind of talked about this already, but who's ultimately in charge, the pilot or the captain? I presume this is a captain that you particularly like since you sent us the picture.
Yeah, yeah, that's Captain Solmas. He and I have the uh, we both ride Harleys, so we sit there, and every time we see each other, we're showing us each other Harley pictures and stuff, and yeah, he's a really nice guy, and he got to take the Federal Lexi Rose. She was fresh out of the shipyard in Japan, and made her maiden voyage into the Great Lakes, and it was really good seeing him on there. I think I was on a Federal Kumano too as well the year before.
Now, do you ever have any challenges with captains?
Not really. The only thing that I've ever experienced as far as a challenge with captains is the use of tugs. Some captains don't want to use tugs, and that's fine and dandy if they don't want to use tugs. But if anything happens, and everything that is said in the pilot house is recorded, so if there's any kind of uh, disagreement and something happens, it's all there for the Coast Guard and the UTSB to figure out. And but generally, the pilot will make the call on tugs, and more times than not, that'll stick.
Okay.
Uh, but I've never had a real problem with it. All the guys I get along with really well. The
Now, do
only
you
guys
ever,
that make me scratch my head are. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, do you ever have like language barrier problems or
Yes.
misunderstandings
I,
or
I won't. I won't say which ship, but 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 yes. Last year there was a ship I was on where I spoke into the captain's phone, and it translated what I said into into whatever language he was speaking. And that was the only time I've ever had that happen. And his officers knew English enough to get by, but the captain had no idea what I was saying.
boy.
And then he'd say something into the phone, and then I'd have to read it.
So
that was pretty interesting.
you had to think a few minutes ahead so you had time for the translation.
Yeah, yeah. Well, ship handling in general is like chess. You're always thinking ahead.
Now, this is a picture that is just from last week, I think. And I plugged this one in here
Yes.
because I wanted to ask about what's the most challenging part about piloting salties on the Great Lakes, because that looks challenging.
I'm going to say the language barrier.
Okay.
I'm going to say the language barrier. That makes it a challenge in itself, and trying to make sure that everybody's on the same page. Yeah, that's because handling a ship is handling a ship, and they all handle differently, and you kind of have an idea what's going on. But when you're getting on a ship and you don't know how the language between the crew and the officers is, and you're throwing, you know, your language into the mix, it can get challenging. That I'm going to say that's the most challenging part.
Okay. Now, tell us a little bit about the challenge of this particular trip from this photo.
That ice is jammed in there, something fierce.
And which boat is this?
Yeah, this is the Algoberta. It's either the Algoberta or the Algo Nova. I want to say it's the Berta. And yeah, we were trying to get through the straits. We had to wait for, I think it was the Biscayne Bay to come and break us out. Uh, both trips I had through the straits last week, I was on the Nova for one and the Berta for the other, and both times we needed tug assistance. The Mackinac helped us with the Algo Nova, and the Biscayne Bay helped us with the Algoberta.
It's a beautiful
But
photo,
it's
by the
packed
way.
in there good. Well, thank you.
And I already know the answer to this, but the question here for the benefit of everybody else is, do you have any particular ships or fleets you like piloting for, and why?
I like the Viking ships. Crews gel well together on there. I get along on both the Polaris and the Canis with the crews. Very good guys. That's the captain and officers on the Viking Arctanus there. And then I like pole steam because I have a Polish heritage. So I feel like I'm kind of part of my heritage when I'm on the pole steam ships. And I get along pretty good with those captains and their crews as well. But there's very few boats I don't like being on because I just like meeting new people and getting to know them and where they're from and the stories that they tell and it, it's nonstop. What do I want to say here? You're constantly learning about different cultures, different places around the world. It's really nice.
So, and every boat is a little different. So it's not like you're
Yes,
on the Sykes forever
yes,
and you just always know what it's going to do without having to think about it.
yeah. I mean, there's something to be said about that as well. I mean, it was comforting knowing that you had a crew that you could count on, and I had top notch crews on both the Sykes and the Ryerson. They were awesome. Uh, there's something to be said for that too. Where your blood pressure lowers in one aspect of that job, it's raised in another one, and it's the same with this job too. It's just kind of reversed.
And of course, we want to ask about the food. We have two slides here of the food, and curious about the best and worst of the food and some of your highlights.
I'm not a big fan of fish on the salties. Not sure where they get it, but it always leaves a foul taste in your mouth. I love breakfast on the pole steam boats, and that picture that the egg sunny side up. That's a typical Polish breakfast on any of the pole steam boats. And I don't know what they put in those yolks, but those yolks are just as flavorful as any egg yolk I've ever had.
Looks
Um,
fantastic.
and then yeah, you don't want to miss breakfast on a pole steam boat on most kids. Uh, and I can't say that outside of fish, I can't say I've had a bad meal on any of the FedNap ships. They always seem to have really good cooks, and it's flavorful food. And if you're lucky enough to be on one on a Sunday at noon, they have biryani, and that's just a Indian tradition. Is this dish called biryani, and it's amazing. So it, everybody, oh, you lucky dog, you're getting on Sunday on a federal whatever, and they're gonna have biryani. You can count on it. But yeah, that's and the cruise ships. You're not going to get a bad meal on a cruise ship. That's just that. Especially like the Viking ones. I know you got some pictures of the Viking ones, but their dessert. Their dessert. You're not going to lose weight on the Viking Octanus. That's for sure. I mean, look at that.
I'm
That
looking
is
at that buffet
is
in the
like a
picture,
dessert
and
table.
I would skip supper for that.
Yeah, that's pretty much. I mean, you're going to get diabetes on that one for sure. But yeah,
Sorry.
and then one picture that was actually on the Algoberta. That was a pork and gravy over rice, but that salmon was amazing. It was salmon. It was grilled salmon with a turmeric sauce, and it was to die for. It was just amazing.
And then what was the stew in the top?
That was a Polish dish. It was like beans and ham and cabbage and like a tomato based broth or a beef based broth with some tomato in it. It was really good. It had
So a little taste
a
of
lot
your
of flavor in
heritage
it.
there.
Yes, yes.
Um, I was going to ask that we've talked about what was challenging, what's most rewarding, and you've talked about this a little bit, but what what makes you like really happy about your choice to transition from being a captain to a pilot?
Oh, like I said, I needed a different challenge. And something about Western Great Lakes pilots is we're business owners. We own the business. We have employees that we pay, and we have office staff, and we have people that fix our cars and take our cars to get maintenance done on them, and we have drivers that drive us all over the place if we need them. We have a fleet of cars that we have to maintain, dispatchers that we have to pay, and they uh, tell us where we need to go. Yeah, we're business owners. We run the business. We buy property for our pilot boats and our docks, and we own the boats, and
So
and
that's a whole other
that's a
thing from
challenge
what
in
you
itself.
learned in the
Yeah,
academy or did
yeah,
in the
you're a
field.
business owner.
So that is a
Yeah,
whole nother
you're
layer
not
of
just a
challenge.
pilot. Yeah, yeah, and we got a awesome bunch of guys here. We're all trying to make the wheels go forward instead of backwards, but and that's a challenge in itself. But everybody has their own set mind, and we all try to make it work. And we're going to get together in a couple of weeks and try to keep the wheels going forward and look forward to when the Seaway opens.
When
Although
does
we've
the
been busy
Seaway
all
open?
winter. I think March 26th or March 28th.
Okay. And then what do
And
you do
it's
over the
it's
winter?
what do I do?
I mean, I know it's a short break because you just got off a boat yesterday. So we really
Yeah,
appreciate that you're here. It's your first day off.
we've we've been swamped. A lot of tanker traffic this year. The Canadian tankers don't have pilotage. They only got like a handful of guys in their Canadian tanker fleet that have pilotage, and so they call us to take their ship to Sault Ste. Marie or Milwaukee or Green Bay. I did two out of Green Bay and took the Baltic out of Sheboygan the other day.
Now, and what do you do when you're
So and
done
there's
piloting
there's
the
many
boat?
more trips. Sleep. go go sleep or or me, I'm dragging my drones around with me. So I'll go to, wherever I'm at, Port Huron or Mission Point or wherever, and I'll go throw my drone up. If I'm in Duluth, I'll walk down to Canal Park and throw my drone up and take boat pictures. It's something to do to kill time.
So it kind of starting to segue to me my next little topic there. Here's a picture of you from I presume a few years ago with a
Yeah.
camera.
Yeah,
And
that's early. That's
oh, sorry, I'll go back.
oh no, that's okay. No, that's okay. I just say that's the VX2000 from Sony. That was my first fairly high-end camera video.
And looks
So
like
that
you're
had to be
rocking the
around
mullet.
2004. Yeah, rock the mullet.
And I understand you're a storm chaser and you like storms.
I loved storm chasing.
And can you
It's
tell us any stories about storms from your time on the Great Lakes? I have a couple photos.
well, the one that stands out in my mind the most is, well, there's two. There's the water spout outbreak in August of 2012, and then the remnants of Hurricane Sandy came up through into the Great Lakes after she made landfall on the East Coast. And well, we were headed northbound on Lake Michigan on the Sykes, and those were some of the biggest waves I ever saw. And we rode fine. We had a yeah, it wasn't bad as long as you didn't try to push it. You just kind of went with the flow, and we were light ship and had, I believe they were coming northeast. Yeah, they were northeast, so we were heading into the sea, which isn't too bad. Stern seas, I'm not a big fan of. Uh, I just think, I don't know. You look at history, and Fitzgerald was in a stern sea, and the Morel was in a stern sea, the Bradley was in a stern sea, and I'm not a big fan of stern seas. But yeah, we rode great. But it was a full moon, and we were going up by Point Betsy, and I was just like in awe at the size of the waves. They were big rollers. They weren't really breakers as much as they were rolling.
Now,
Um,
can you tell us a
but
little
yeah,
bit
and there's
about the stay with the water spouts?
yeah, so there's a funny story. We left Burns Harbor that morning on the Sykes, and I don't know, it was about 10 or 11 o'clock, and I was laying in bed and I could hear the rain. We went through a little rainstorm, and I could hear the rain on the roof of my cabin. And then the phone rang, and the third mate's like, "Hey, Cap, I think there's a water spout forming." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, well, I'll come up and check it out." So I came up and I'm looking. I don't see any water spout. And he's like, "No, no, no, roll the window down and look up." And I rolled the window down and looked up, and there's this big funnel cloud hanging down. I'm like, "Oh my God." So I immediately just ran downstairs and got all my cameras and stuff and got them set up. And next thing you know, this is what's unfolding right there on the port side. So yeah, we counted, I think, 12 that day. It was pretty cool.
Wow. Now, does that impact your sailing or you just go right through? Big enough boat.
No, I mean, a November gale is going to dish out way more punishment than any one of those water spouts would do. But I don't know if I'd ever intentionally sail into one, as much as it would be really interesting to find out what happened. But I'm sure that would become very scrutinized if that ever happened. So yeah, you probably just try to do whatever you could to avoid them.
Now, what about lightning?
I
Ever
love
been hit by
photographing lightning,
lightning?
especially out on the lake. Um, have I ever been hit? No, but I was on the Sykes, and it was during one of the Mackinac races, and we were heading up Lake Michigan, and big storm came through, and I was out on outside the passenger quarters because there's a nice overhang there, it keeps you out of the rain, and I was trying to get some lightning shots, and the whole sky just lit up. It was just like this big flash bulb went off, and it sounded like a howitzer going off. And what happened was one of the radio antennas on top of the pilot house got hit. And it's funny because the picture that it took on that, nothing like it was so bright. It was so overexposed from the flash of that bolt. But it was It was loud. It was very loud. I
Didn't
think that's about
interfere
the
with
only time I was ever on a ship that got hit.
and did it interfere with your
Oh, the radio
electronics
was
or
shot.
anything?
Just that radio. Yeah, just that radio. It killed the radio. And for a while we couldn't figure out why. And then put two and two together, and I was like, aha, there's an antenna up there that got hit. Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. So we're getting to the end here for everyone who's stuck with us. If someone's interested in becoming a pilot or working on the Great Lakes, how would they get started?
Experience. You don't need a master's license to be a pilot. You just need to be a pilot. And actually, we actually have a guy this year. He was a captain with Maersk, and he's training to be a pilot on the Great Lakes right now. He's writing his pilotage for the next through the winter here, and then next year he'll start. Once he gets his pilotage, then he starts his official training with us. But yeah, experience is everything, and having a pilotage to do it.
Now, what are some of the things like in people's personalities or skills that would help them succeed working on the Great Lakes and being a pilot?
That dedication, because it's not easy. It's not easy on your home life. It's not easy on your personal life. It's not easy on your well-being. It's as busy as we are. It's very demanding. You're going, especially when the cruise ships come into town. You're going pretty much. We call them turn and burns. You get your minimum rest, and then you're getting ready to jump on another ship. Very rarely do you get the two off when the cruise ships are around.
Cool. Now, I want to let everyone know that most of these photos were either provided to me by Roger Lelivre, who got a lot of them from Eric's mom, and most of them, other than the one from the Gemini, were photos that Eric took. Eric takes a lot of photos, and I'll let Eric tell us about where we can see more of your photos and follow your adventures.
Yeah, you can follow me on Facebook or Instagram at the Captain ET, and my storm content for chasing storms on the plains, Eric Treece at Instagram, and Colorado Storm Chaser. I'm probably going to change the name of that to whatever, because I go everywhere. I don't just stay in Colorado to chase storms. Although I don't get the time as much now to chase storms like I used to back in the Sykes days and the Orb days. You get 30 to 45 days most of the time. So it'd be nothing for me to drive to Oklahoma or halfway across Kansas or up into South Dakota, Nebraska. And now it's like when I get home, I just want to be home. So the storm better be happening within 2 counties of where I live, or I'm not going to see it. Or last year I got a really nice tornado in Nebraska, but it just coincided that I was heading back to Michigan to go to work the day that it happened. So that was dumb luck. That wasn't forecasting skill whatsoever. I knew there was a chance, and I actually hung out in North Platte for a while. But if that tornado day was down in Oklahoma City, Eric wouldn't have been there. Eric would have been plowing through to get to Port Huron. Yep.
Well, then it seems it makes sense to broaden the scope for that, and then you have a lot more opportunity for Midwestern storms.
Yes, yeah. Although I always seem to be on the opposite end. It seemed like that since I really got serious in the storm. More times than not, I always call myself the Storm Reaper. And I'll be up on the north end of Lake Michigan when the storms are on the south end of Lake Michigan, or the auroras will be happening, and I'll be stuck in clouds, or name your poison. I'll be at the opposite of wherever things are happening.
And I guess you can't exactly turn that salty around to follow a storm.
No, I'd
They frown on that.
In some pretty deep trouble for that. Yeah, it's just the way it happens sometimes.
So I think that a bunch of questions have already gone into our chat. And before I get to dealing with those and to give everyone else a chance if they have questions I didn't think of to ask, to add them into the chat feature on the screen. Just going to review our situations at our visitor centers. The Lake Superior Maritime Visitor Center has its winter hours on. They're open Thursday through Monday, 10 to 4:30. There's cell phone tours available outdoors, and they do have a virtual online tour of the visitor center available. And here at the Sioux Locks, we are closed for the season. Our park is open, but I'm not sure why anyone would go there because I don't know if I mentioned it. We've had 11 feet of snow. It's cold and miserable in our park, and the observation platform is closed. We are unable to keep up with snow and ice removal to have the platform be safe for use. But I do want to, it's a little ahead of the game, but I want to plug our first ship activities. We are having a members reception the evening before the locks open. The locks are currently scheduled to open at midnight, March 25th. So if you come to our park at 11:30 p.m. March 24th, you will be there to watch the first ship come in, unless they change the time. They've done that in the past. The Visitor Center Association is also having a drawing for paid members. It's a free drawing, but you have to be a member of the association. And they draw a name on March 6th to greet the first ship. That's a tradition at the Sioux, where a bunch of city dignitaries, sometimes we get people from our senator offices and our local representative, and they go and they greet the first captain and present gifts, and a lucky member of the Visitor Center Association will get to accompany and represent the Sioux Locks Visitor Center Association's board and meet that first captain, get a photo op, and participate in that special little ceremony. You can visit their website at siouxlocks.org to join if you're not a member and want to become one. And if you are a member, there is an events page on that website that lets you register for the drawing. So with that out of the way, I'm going to start looking at some of these questions here. It's going to take me a minute. Someone was asking if the Noble Odyssey is now the Pride of Michigan. I'm not sure if maybe they were referring to
Odyssey.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I think the Noble Odyssey sank.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure what the circumstances were around that, but I did hear that she's no longer around. So the Pride of Michigan, that's a completely different boat. Oh wait, Pride of Michigan, that's the Academy boat. That's the
Well, there's
Maritime
called the
Academy ship.
State of Michigan.
Or that's the state of Michigan. What's the Pride of Michigan?
Well, Dale, or not Dale, Captain Mike, if you can clarify your question for us, we'll get to it.
It's the Noble Odyssey run by Luke Clybourne for cadets.
Yes.
Are you on? You ever been on that?
Yeah, that's the one that I was on, was the Noble Odyssey.
Okay.
Luke Clybourne was the commander, yes.
Yep, that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
And we had a question of why you needed to pilot for Algoma tankers. And that's a question that actually came, I think, from Park Ranger Scott, who's watching, because we're accustomed to the Algoma boats not requiring a captain. What makes the tankers different?
Well, it's not necessarily always the tankers. We've done pilotage jobs for the Spruce Glen in the past. The Honorable Paul Martin, the Captain Henry Jackman, the new one. We've had a pilot on board. For whatever reason, the Canadians don't always have pilotage above Port Huron.
Okay.
And I don't know why. I don't know why. They don't get it, but that's why they call us. And then we I know there was in the scheduling that was coming up there, supposedly on the Algo Canada they were going to have a pilot, but for whatever reason that didn't work out, and they didn't have somebody with pilotage, so one of our guys jumped on it and took it to Saint Marie. And that's generally how it goes. Sometimes they have it and sometimes they don't. Algo Nova quite often has somebody with pilotage, and the next trip they won't. So it's just a matter of
The captain
them
and what
following
his
the letter of the
license
law.
is
Yeah,
then. Okay.
right, correct.
Michael Lesher was asking how we get a hold of Eric, and I presume maybe through your Facebook and Instagram pages.
Yeah, I try to answer any questions anybody throws at me. I'm not the greatest at checking my private messages or messages, but I try to.
Okay.
So But if like somebody comments on my photos, I definitely try to go through and I refresh that quite often to make sure that anybody asking questions, those get answered. So if you do have questions about something that I've posted, I definitely check that way more than private messages.
Okay, good to know. I had a comment here from Mark Hansen. He's commenting how interesting this has been from both a lake captain and pilot experience. His late grandfather sailed for Interlake Steamship for 45 years as a captain for the last 20 years of his career. Retired in 1963 from the Sherwin, and says, I cannot talk with him anymore, and oh, how he would enjoy talks like this. And thanks you.
Yeah, the John Sherwin. I wonder what's going to happen to her. She's in much the same state as the Ryerson, just kind of sitting around waiting for something good to happen, and hopefully something good happens to both those boats.
And another nice compliment from Todd Shorkey. Thank you for sharing your time, experiences, and the outstanding photography. And I do want to add a little caveat to this, that Eric has way better pictures than what you saw in this presentation. He was battling ice on boats for the last few weeks on the Great Lakes. And we had a very short amount of time from him getting home yesterday to me going live on camera today to sort out pictures. So I really encourage you to check out his Facebook page. I actually was on there last night grabbing a couple photos to fill in a few gaps. They're amazing. Michael Lesher is also asking if you're a member of Shipmasters.
No, I am not. I figure I have more than half my life has been on water. When I get off, I don't want anything to do with boats. I want to go live my life. So no, I don't belong to Shipmasters.
Which is probably why you live in Colorado.
That's exactly why I live in
a landlocked state.
Yes. Part of the method of the madness to moving out here was I was always a Broncos fan, and then when the Avalanche moved to Colorado, I was a big Avalanche hockey fan. But then I was like, if I move to Colorado, maybe I'll move down on the list to, Treece is close, get him back, and I'm 1,000 miles away. So it's a little bit harder for me to get back than somebody that lives, in Chicago. So.
And I think the rest is just all very nice comments and thanking you for your photography and for the interesting presentation. I will download those notes and send them to you so you can enjoy. But I'm not going to read them all through individually. Sorry, everybody, if you were waiting for that. And I did have one. There's a question from Sheila. She said she loves your pictures. And how bored do you get waiting for the Coast Guard to clear ice?
I can understand why they do nighttime only, because I would imagine.
You mean daytime
just being
only.
on the Sykes or daytime only, yeah. I can imagine how loud that is, because on the Sykes, nobody slept when we were plowing through ice on the Sykes, because it just constant. Just imagine a steel plate with somebody beating it with multiple sledgehammers, and that's what it's like. What it sounds like when you're trying to get through ice. It's very loud. Nobody sleeps. So I understand why they do daytime only. But yeah, it's good to have them around. I will say that, because we'd probably still be sitting there trying to figure out how to get through without them.
Or how to get groceries while you wait.
Or how to get groceries. Yeah. Where do we get Bob's Jiffy helicopter service, please? That's about the only way you can.
And I don't know if this is someone that worked with you before, but Dale Stewart is saying, good to see you. After the Ryerson laid up, I worked relief on the research vessels like the Blue Heron. Take care, from Dale.
Yeah. Yeah, when you went down to let your husband in there, Dale jumped on there, and I recognized him right away. He was one of my wheelsmen on the Ryerson when she came out in 2006.
Very cool. And he said he enjoyed Lonnie's book and says you could write one as well.
Yeah, I keep hearing I need to write a book. I need an army of lawyers.
Well, just have it published, posthumously. Get ready to roll.
There you go.
Well, thank
There's
you,
an idea.
everybody, for joining us today. I hope I covered everything everybody wanted to hear about. Again, I want to plug our next presentation that's coming up. There we go. Oh, I already plugged it. Never mind. Here's all the places where you can check out what we're doing. And again, we have that next program coming up on the 5th of March, which will be another captain, and it should be another great presentation, although I think it's going to be pretty hard to top you, Eric, because this was fascinating.
I'm glad you all enjoyed it, and thank you very much for having me.
And we'll have this has been recorded, and we'll get it posted on the internet in probably the next week or so. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. And thank you, Eric, so much on your first day off spending it with us.
You're very welcome. Thank you.